Yo! Yayo Talk Show!
Dreamin'! Don't give it up, Molly.
Dreamin'!
Don't give it up, Marco.
Dreamin'!
Don't give it up, Kaden.
Dreamin'!
Al's name didn't fit. They talk about the show, this group of four friends been going for 1,000,000 years, there's no end. Watching every arc and saga, no sleep. It's the king of anime, 1,000 episodes deep.
Yayo! Yayo! Yayo Talk Show!
Talking about One Piece.
It's the name of the podcast.
We're not on Vine. Yayo Talk Show. Talking about
One Piece.
Welcome aboard to the most chaotic One Piece podcast on the Grand Line Internet. I'm Brave Warrior of the Sea, the Internet's Mark B. Donica, joined as always by wild theorist Kaden Jensen.
Heyo, let's do it.
The resident laugh doctor, Al McClellan.
Hi, everybody. Ha, laughing. That's part of the, okay.
That's the gimmick. And the captain of the simp, Molly Flood.
Let's go!
So, welcome back to Yayo Talk Show. I still laugh hearing and seeing that name all the damn time because it's such a ridiculous. It's so stupid. Al, you genius.
Yeah, let's say that from the beginning. Everybody needs to know Al came up with this gorgeous name.
As far as dancing on the knife between stupid and awesome, that's where I live.
That's what this show is, though. Like, that's really, what One Piece is.
And when Mark did that initial recording for, okay, here's what it's going to sound like for the intro, the ending, I was really hoping that you'd keep your own little laughter in there. It's like, it's so stupid. Because that ended me immediately.
Well, what's great is like when I was getting everybody else's recordings to do like the master, the final one, everybody else had that moment of just like, this is the stupidest thing in the world.
It's so dumb.
I realized when I sent you mine, I accidentally recorded, like basically I got to the end when you're laughing and I was just like, what? Like
what? Hello?
What?
Everybody's was so good, and that's audio that nobody's gonna hear ever unless you donate to our Patreon. Oh God, I hope not.
Buy merch.
So, this week we're actually starting to talk about the story sequentially. We're going to be talking about the East Blue Saga and the variety of arcs in between. But before we get started, we have to ask the question that's on everybody's mind. At time of recording, Kaden, where are you in the series?
Right. I am knee deep into Water 7 and on my way to Annie's Lobby. I believe I'm at 262.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like they're like heavily teasing like we're going to Annie's Lobby. So it's like my brain's just like, okay, so Annie's Lobby is the next arc after Water 7. And it's like One Piece is great about that. Like before we properly set sail, that's nice. The thing that I've picked up on like 200 some odd episodes into this is if One Piece says something, it's coming back. It's going to. It's gonna come back.
Like no string is left unexamined.
We'll get to it. If it's not right now, we'll come back to it later. And if there's a question that you think you're gonna ask, it's like if there's a thought in the back of your mind, One Piece will get there. That's every time I'm just like, well, maybe this is, and then like 20, 30 episodes later, it's like, oh, there it is. And it's just like, yes, validation, I'm right.
And so we're going to circle back around to that at the end of the episode. And there's a reason why Kaden has the wild theorist epithet on her wanted poster, because we're going to get to some wild theories by the end of the show today. But let's start at the beginning. I don't think there's any place better to start at with the Romance Dawn arc, which features the introduction to Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. If you're watching the anime, because the manga introduces Nami in the Orange Town arc, but in terms of the show, let's start at the top. We've got Luffy and Coby and Alvida and this terrifying first pirate encounter, as well as some backstories with our swordsman and our captain. But I'm going to start with Molly because she is our avatar for Luffy in more ways than one.
Hooray.
We, especially for us who are caught up, going back to the beginning and seeing everything with Luffy's backstory and Shanks and even the mountain bandits to a certain extent. What was it like going back, and what do you take away from Romance Dawn?
I am like a huge, I mean, it's on the hat, right? I'm a huge simp for like really good, straightforward origin stories. Like I love, I always use The Hobbit as an example for like, just like, I mean, sure, Lord of the Rings afterwards, but it's basically like a standalone book. You know, it's just like they have a plot. They're gonna go and do the thing, and then it gets resolved. Like that's just how it goes. And I love stories like that. And like even just currently I'm rereading so we're fresh in the podcast, and then also to have like more in-depth conversation with Kaden about what she's watching, just because there's so many like little things you forget. There's big things you remember and like little things you forget. And just rereading this first arc over again, the East Blue arc, is just like, oh, it's so good. And Al, Mark, and I are all up to current chapters being released in Japan right now. And there's still so many things that Oda, the mangaka, the creator of One Piece, has interlaid so early on that is still like getting resolved, or you don't even realize. You remember certain things later, but you don't remember everything. And there's some stuff he sets up even earlier than I remember everything gets paid off in this story. I love it so much. But even just from the get-go, the first thing we find out is just like why this manga is called One Piece. And we find out about Gold Roger. He's the pirate king. And he spurs this whole generation of new pirates to go and find his like exceeding wealth, basically, is what we're led to believe. And
he left it all in
he left it all in One Piece.
Oh yeah, that's the name.
Allegedly.
So he said the name. He said the name.
What? They're like, you only get one. We'll never talk about the One Piece again. We just have to get it in there.
If it's 99-cent McNugget meal from McDonald's at the end of this, I'm gonna be just like, all right.
A coupon.
That 20% off Bed Bath & Beyond coupon.
We'll get there.
But it's like the Bed Bath & Beyond has like since bankrupt and closed, so it's not even...
It's a Borders gift card. No, wait.
Oh, Walden's Books.
It's a Blockbuster card.
It's my Blockbuster membership card.
We gotta go to the last Blockbuster. That's where we're sailing to.
It's like also
so many
on
reward points that could get you the whole franchise.
But it's like
one store.
That store though is on Luffy's island, so they have to go all the way back, basically.
That would be like the ultimate like punk move. It's just like, we gotta sail all the way to the Grand Line and beyond. And then it's like they open up the chest, it's like, return to start. It's like, oh, come on. Return to start.
The ultimate road trip story.
Did you make friends? Yes, that was the treasure. You did it.
You're welcome.
Just on a written note. You're welcome, Gold D. Roger. Oh, dang it.
There's so much in this first story. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong with the anime. Does it just introduce Luffy leaving first and then backtracks to his backstory, or do we start on Shanks and the bandits in the anime?
We start on the ship with Coby.
Yeah.
That's where we start. Luffy doesn't even show up until like halfway through the episode. So the first 15 minutes of the first episode of One Piece is this little nerd, Coby, just hanging out. And this, terrifying pirate, Alvida, who I initially was just like, well, she's really interesting. And then later on, I was just like, she's really interesting. And then even further on, I'm just like, yeah, she's all right.
She's a what do the kids call it? She's a girl boss until a certain point.
She's
Kate and I are still on Tumblr, so we know certain terms.
Gaslight girl. Oh, she's so gaslight, then turns into girl boss. Oh,
well, okay, I won't
that
speak.
tickled me when you played today.
I'm sorry to the dudes in our group. This is a Tumblr-based terminology. I'll send you guys definitions later.
That's where me and the captain kind of like we understand each other better than
But okay, so I won't speak to the anime then. I'll let you guys do that. But in terms of the manga, the first thing we get is Luffy's origin. Basically, we meet Shanks, we meet the town he grew up in. It's such a good start to the series because I want to say this is all in the first chapter, but it just sets the tone and the it's just like this is so much of what One Piece is explained in this first chapter, and it's in terms of temperament, powers, characters, motivation. It's just like I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. It's such a good origin of just explaining like they're pirates, like the bandits show up and they start causing trouble because like big dick energy, even though they got small dicks. Like they show up, start swinging swords around, wanting free served and things like that. And then you'd expect like bigger dick energy from the pirates, these like legendary pirates who are there to immediately just be like a dick measuring contest. But they're not. Immediately, like Shanks gets harassed and he just laughs it off. And that, like, to this day is such a good character intro. Like the temperament is just like, it's like you guys can't see it. I'm doing a bunch of like Italian
Chef
kisses.
kiss.
Yeah, chef kiss. It's so good, and it's such a good. Everything that happens in this origin for Luffy is just setting him on the path that he continues to where we are, which is over 1,000 chapters later. This is still who Luffy is. This is the role model that this is an long-lasting impression on this impressionable boy, where he, it's just like, you can do whatever you want to me. If you even think about messing with my friends, you're gonna get it. Like you're gonna get it. And by it, I mean you're dead. You're dead.
You're dead.
Literally, because Lucky Roo just runs up and shoots that guy square in the head. Like, that's so dark.
It's just
also, it shows how strong the Shanks and his crew are.
Yeah.
And that very same thing of how serious messing with a friend is and how close to heart they take it.
And it's a great way to like, you realize right away from that moment, I think is the best. You're right, Mark. It's like the best point where up until then you just assume these guys aren't that strong, that they're kind of like, haha, we'll laugh it off because it's either laugh or cry here. Like we're not strong enough to get rid of these guys. It's like, no, it's similar to DBZ. It's like they're in a good mood because they know they can just flick their finger and these people would be obliterated, like spread across the wall. Like they're that strong. And it's
they don't want to wreck Party's bar, so it's like.
But it's like I also love with this first story that it doesn't matter how strong you are, some things are still going to happen because they like totally obliterate all of these bandits. But it's like in the meantime, like Luffy got kidnapped by like the head bandit, you know what I mean? And like Shanks is like, oh my god, we gotta go save him. Like, what do you mean he got kidnapped? And it's like they just as easily could have prevented that, but like shenanigans will ensue. And then even like to the testament of that, it's like things are still going to happen. Doesn't matter how like strong you are. Like Shanks, we know is so strong, and he still gets his arm eaten off by a Neptune.
Sea King.
Yeah, Sea King. Yes, and it's just like it doesn't matter, dude. Like it's like even strong people like lose their arms. Like, and they set that up from chapter 1. Like they explain everything like this in chapter 1, and it's just so good. And they get to the get-go where it's like One Piece. We know what the One Piece is. We know who was the owner of the One Piece. Luffy gets his motivation to set wants to have that title, that Pirate King title. We learn what Devil Fruit is. And then we just see this man who has left such an impression on Luffy set him on his course, basically, and gives him this straw hat, which is like what he is known for.
I think because they flip things around in the anime, I think that pacing, like specifically the way it's set up in the manga there, it works better in the manga sense.
Yes.
But when it comes to the anime, the fact that it gets going, like, here's some action stuff, like, right away. Here's some stuff, and there's some mystery behind it. You see Nami show up. You set up this, like, here's this, really terrifying pirate, and this little kid's terrified of this pirate, and that's Alvida. And then, they just have this barrel that they find. It's like, oh, cool, we can just plunder this stuff. And inside the barrel, there's Luffy. And they just, like, boop, halfway through the episode. And to add in Gatekeep into the middle of the the gaslight girl boss.
Yes.
Luffy is the gatekeep because the moment Coby shows up, it's just like starts explaining all these things, and Luffy's just like, I hate you. It's just like, it means like, you suck, and I don't like people like you at all. I'll save you, but I just want you to know you suck, you're a loser, and you need to change if we're ever going to be friends.
Out the gate, Luffy is just like, I just hate your vibes.
Your vibes, nasty.
It's just like, whatever, dude. Like,
what's her devil fruit? Slip, not a vibe.
Yeah, right. The thing is like, she doesn't even get that till like later. Like, we don't even see that until like later on, because she's just Alvida, like Alvida Prime at the moment, before she like ends up
her first form.
Yeah.
But similarly to like a Frieza, I even though she is like her devil fruit self longer, even like in this first East Blue bit, like even though she is longer in that form, I still, when I think of Alvida, I think of her first appearance.
Yeah, I do too. I actually forget she comes back so often.
It's because she looks so differently. That's the whole thing, where she goes from like we talked about this like way before when we were planning the podcast, is Oda knows how to draw two types of women. Really funky, weird, and then Nami.
Yeah. Copy paste.
Which like, that's fine. I mean, it's whatever. But like, Alvida doesn't look like, and I think that too, is like, when I think of Alvida, I think like that first episode.
Yeah.
But she does not look like that. Like, for a bit, and then she gets yeehaw vibes, which I'm all about, but like, her vibes still sour. Like, she's got,
you put anybody in a cowboy hat and Caden's into it.
Listen, I love it all. Listen,
energy.
you give me somebody in a Robin Hood hat, I'm into it. You give somebody in a cowboy hat, I'm into it. You give me a Robin Hood in a cowboy hat, and I'm done. Which we'll get
next episode.
We'll get there. But I appreciate the fact that in like the Romance Dawn arc for the anime, we set up the world first. It's 15 minutes of, here's some pirate shenanigans. Then Luffy shows up and we get some intro to Luffy. Then the next episode is just like, and then here's Zoro. And then it's just like, okay. And now
it's a quest for a brain cell.
Right. And it's like, and then like by episode 4, now we've got Zoro, we've got Luffy, and we've got Nami. So we've got that main core 3 in there to a degree by 4 episodes in. But we still don't know much about like Zoro or Nami, and we just at episode 4, because that's when Orangetown starts. Because we see teases of Nami, but Nami doesn't really properly show up until the Orangetown arc starts, which is when we actually learn that first chapter stuff from the manga, where it's like, okay, so here's why he's a rubber man, and here's why he rubber mans all over the place, and here's where his hat came from. And I like that like small buildup, because it set the pace for how the rest of the anime kind of goes towards. And the anime definitely takes some liberties. I started, because I'm absolutely out of my mind. I'm 200 and something episodes into One Piece. And then my smart ass decides to be just like, what if I go all the way back to refresh myself and read the manga?
Yeah.
Before I go into recording these podcast episodes. So I'm going back and I'm rereading the stuff I just did.
Yeah. You are going to be like the most to One Piece because you now know all the filler. You now know what is like in what order, and then you're going back and seeing like what all intents and purposes the original the OG like One Piece is being told basically. But I will say in terms of the anime versus the manga with these first couple episodes, they do it in a way where every other person in the crew gets their story told, where we meet the character first and then we see their motivations for the epitome of what drives them, what their dream is basically. And in the manga, we see Luffy's motivation first to help us get in the rhythm of this really interesting protagonist. But I like that in the anime, they flip the script a little bit where we meet him first and then we find out like, quote unquote, why should we care? Or what is he? Why is Luffy? Like, let's go back. Let's figure out why is Luffy?
Why is Rubber Man?
Was he always Rubber Man?
Al, when you started taking on the series, were you reading or were you watching?
So when I first started, I was watching, and I got to a point where I caught up with the anime, and I was like, I guess this is based on something, and then I started reading from there. And
You guess?
this anime is dedicated to some other form of media. I guess I should investigate what that is. And
Video games?
Then I played the video game all the way through until I caught up. But like I got to a point, like this was maybe 10 years ago, and I would hit the end of an arc and realize that the next arc was like in progress, and I'd be like, well, I'm gonna want the entire arc to be done, otherwise I just sit in the middle waiting for the end. And it's like being caught up now, it's like I want the payoff. I know there's going to be a great payoff.
Yeah.
And so it's a little frustrating, but I understand. I know that drawing takes time. I know that animation takes time. I'm in the animation industry, so it's like, yes, I get it. But also the fanboy part of me is like, come on, give me.
It's the want to absorb all of the content. It's the like, oh, I'm watching this, like, because of course there's some things that start in animation and then they'll get like a spin-off manga or a light novel or a comic book series, depending on when or just like when you get into it, you're just like, I need to know more about this world. One Piece is absolutely that.
100%.
I feel like until like last year, before even we knew what binge culture was, before it was like a brand like that was to be encouraged by, Netflix and things like that, I had binge culture in mind for that exact same reason, Al. I would just like catch up to a certain chapter. It would be a new arc. And then I think almost every single time I would catch up and just be like, I want more One Piece. So I would go back and reread the entire thing just to get me going. And then there's usually a point where I'm like, all right, I'm out right now. 6 months will go by and I'll be like, I gotta check what's going on in One Piece. But it's the people who I talked to about One Piece before like this last year, same mentality but it was like we would always be on a different wavelength of like, now's the time for me to check up on One Piece versus like, no, I'm going to give it a couple more months. So it was so frustrating because I would be like, bro, I caught up on One Piece. Let's talk about it. It's like, did they finish the arc yet? Well, no. I'm gonna keep waiting until the arc is done. Like, I want to talk about it so bad.
Well, so here's something that I think Oda is really good at, and I think we have all become trained to. And Caden, I think just your general knowledge of anime and animation in general has done this too. But Oda keeps us thinking about certain lines of people, certain groups of people, to a point where after X amount of time, you're like, I wonder how Choo Choo's doing, or like whatever, whoever it might be, like whatever character it might be, you start wondering, well, they didn't die. Are they still around? And you think about that for long enough until boom, they reappear again. And so with the waiting from the week to week, that natural thing of, it turns into I miss Kaya. I miss whomever. I miss Richie the lion. I'm gonna go and find like the best of Richie the Lion or whatever. And so now that we are, or at least now that Almali and I are caught up, it's that thing of, I haven't heard from this character in a long time.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll just start over. Like watching there is a for the 20th anniversary, they released the episode of East Blue, which was the best thing for me because it compressed the five
main beats.
the main beats of the origin stories and like
Animated
meeting
clip
these
notes.
characters for essentially, but it was like a 2-hour movie that had like all of the beats and it hit really strong. And so like I'm like yoked with sad backstory right now.
And it should be said that like also like for the celebration of the anniversary, that whole 2-hour thing, Mark, they reanimated it, right? So it's like even
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I need to go and watch this. Is it okay? Is it okay to watch this at this point? Like if I watch
they
this...
don't. It's not like a thing where they're now and thinking about, hey, remember when we met? Like, no.
That's what I was curious about. Is did they do the shenanigans of just like, wow, it was so long ago, and it was like really like 2 or 3 years or whatever.
So it was them leaving Logetown and like making their declaration before entering the Grand Line as the impetus of what got them to that point. So it's really recent. It's just East Blue, and it's a wonderful walk through memory lane. Some of the stuff is like, boom, this happened. Oh, I'm sad. Oh, remember when this thing happened? You were sad. Like some of the stuff works a lot better. So actually, in a way to sort of transition, Zoro's story about him and Kuina was like, so like I guess we take it a little for granted of how it has made such a lasting impression because of this is Zoro's character. Like this is Zoro's character,
this is a core. Like everything that Zoro does is and breathes, no matter what. Like even pre Straw Hat, it's like it's all about this. Like if the Straw Hats suddenly just didn't exist, Zoro would still be doing this.
Yeah, he would still be on his journey to tell Kuina from heaven, or no, well, shout to heaven, pirate heaven, of course, that he was the greatest swordsman in the world. And the recap special does like it's like I will beat you. Kuina died. I'm so sad, and we're back to the present. Like,
wow.
It was
Here's the footnotes.
Seriously, it was so weird just to be like, huh. Well, they really minimized that as much as they could. But I think amongst everybody, Zoro is the person that we learn about necessarily the least.
Yeah.
But it's still such a strong motivator. Death.
I want to counteract that, but I
don't know. No.
So
no, Kaden, please.
So I want to counteract that. And I want to say Sanji. I want to say Sanji instead because we catch up with Sanji after he's already brought in. Like he's like, oh well, Sanji's a kid and blah blah blah, etc. etc. And it's like we know about Sanji a smidge. We know Sanji after the fact. Like we know Sanji's like after Sanji gets picked up by these these chef weirdos, and then it turns into a whole thing, and then we learn about his chef arc. And I kind of like ramble about this. We have a text channel where like I just info dump my just like drop all my like brain nuggets on the floor and move away from them because everything happens so fast in One Piece. As I'm going to get to that binge thing in a second, but and the thought process is like we know Zoro from Jump.
From Shonen Jump. I'm sorry.
we know Zoro from Shonen Jump.
Brand.
But and it sets it up, and I'm sure there's more to Zoro. And we still there's still stuff that I don't know about Zoro, and I'm sure we're gonna get to it because I'm sure there's things about everybody that I don't know. There's like, oh, the hidden secret of, I don't know, Nami's toe ring or some nonsense. But
their favorite food, their favorite color,
There's a lot of stuff that we just don't know. Or in this case, there's a lot of stuff I don't know that I don't know. But one of the big things that kind of like comes into my mind, especially with the case of like how we see Luffy in those first few episodes, like they just pick him up. They're just like, oh, he was in a barrel. And then we learn about him a couple episodes later. It's like, oh, this was him growing up. We don't see that for Sanji as much as we see it for everyone else. We see Usopp, it's like, oh, my mom died sad. My dad left sad. I lie, but everybody likes me because I lie. Fun, happy, 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 and then pirates.
Fun.
But when then Zoro's is like, I want to be a really good swordsman, and then he gets his ass kicked, and he's like, I'm gonna grab 2 swords, and gets his ass kicked. 3 swords, gets his ass kicked, and then oh no, my best friend died. It's like, well, how am I gonna beat her now? It's like, well,
can I just in terms of like Zoro's backstory too, can I just like put a quick pin in like all the Straw Hats that Caden has met so far? They kind of like fully flesh out like in terms of backstory, like motivation, and like we kind of see every single thing. Like even like with Sanji, we're seeing like they're getting robbed, and then the storm hits, and then the leg gets eaten. But it's in terms of Zoro, it's like we see the motivation where these kids are just like, like I'm gonna be the best. So here's a real sword, and like we're fighting at midnight. Like we're gonna like here's a real knife. We're going at it.
it's
But then
baller. It's awesome.
But then it's just like, all right, we've kind of like set this thing up. He's like, I'm gonna beat you one day, and then the next panel, at least I don't know how it is in the anime. The next thing is just like, whoa, Zoro, did you hear your best friend just like tripped down the stairs and died? And then we know it's just like it's such a hard cut where we're like we don't even see like a lead up to this happening. Like
you lose
it's not even
Zoro,
her being like,
and then she died.
Yeah, it's not even like what is she up to that day? It's like like, oh, I gotta beat Zoro again, and then like oops, trips down the stairs. It's like no, it's just like, remember that thing you want, you'll never get it, so you better just like adapt to a new dream now. Like you'll never beat her, but you can use her sword to beat everyone else.
For this first group of folks, I would probably say we get the most backstory from Luffy and Nami, but for the rest of them, it's a thing of let's get to what we need. Let's get on the damn ship, and let's go to the next goddamn island.
It's the truth. I mean, like Zoro's is pretty cut and dry. I'm sure there's like, again, nuggets of truth that are buried in there that I don't know yet, and will probably come up in the next 60 to 100 episodes, because we're not going to get out of this like first era of anything without getting more and more backstory from people. And there's probably like backstory that even they don't know, which is cool. And I like that. But like Usopp's is pretty cut and dry, but we know his dad is out there being some sort of pirate somewhere. We don't know with whom or anything like that, but we don't need to know that. We don't need that information.
That's not true at all. we know where Yesup's with Shanks.
Well, yeah, but we don't know where Shanks is. It's like it's like where are they? It's like, I don't know. Ocean. It's most of the planet.
But there's like all of these different connecting threads that these people that the different crew members get from like that Luffy sees in them, also in Shanks's crew. Like, right. Oh, your dad's Usopp. Like I already wanted you to join before, but like now you got to be on my ship, because then I'll be closer to being like Shanks.
Right, and that's like Luffy's kind of end goal besides being king of the pirates. There's like the short term, which is I want to be like Shanks, and the long term is I want to beat Shanks and be king of the pirates. Yeah, be the best of the best.
Caden, the best possible way to sum that up, 100%.
But like to double back a little bit, there's 2 things that you brought up, Molly and Mark, is one, that binge culture idea to things, and this is what's making it really hard to like watch a lot of it, because I don't like binging things. I hate it. I hate binge culture. I think it's a problem. I like episode to episode. I like being able to stop, theorize, and think. So that's why, like, if there's a big cliffhanger, and it's why like I was just like, oh, this is where I'm going to stop for the night. And it was just like this huge cliffhanger moment. It never bothers me. So it was like something to do in Water 7. I don't even remember exactly where I stopped at that point, because I've blown past it.
Oh no, I remember. It was just before CP9 revealed themselves.
Okay, yeah. I like waiting a minute, because it gives me time to think. And that's where like a lot of my theories come from, is like having that time. It's like It's why episode to episode for WandaVision was fun for so many people. Because like, oh, it's just like, is it this? Is it that? And it's like, it's nothing. The answer is the answer is it's a Disney show.
Guess
and
what?
It's in a Marvel Cinematic Universe. The answer is no. The answer is nothing. You're not going to get much of anything. But it was fun to do that. It's fun to like have those moments. And if your expectations aren't subverted, or if it gives you exactly what you want, whatever. That's not the fun part of it. The fun part is like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and Charlie and the corkboard and just be like, something's going to happen and Quicksilver's going to go over here. But like, that's the fun part. So every once in a while, like I try to get through East Blue as quickly as possible, because that's a lot of just setup. And that's where we are right now. But once we get to the next arcs and so on and so forth, there's a lot of just like, well, that's weird. I'm going to stop here and think. So I do that a lot. So it's when I'm, and that's the insurmountable part of it is I have like 900 episodes to get through.
Yeah.
But I want to stop every 20 episodes and just like sit down with a notebook and be just like, just think for a bit. And again, we're going to get to that later, but
Get some of that spare red yarn.
Yeah.
but to harp on something that Mark said is, when you get introduced to somebody and they don't die, which not a lot of people dying in this thing, you're waiting for them to come back. Alvida doesn't die. Is Alvida going to come back? Yes. And it's like, in the next arc, once we get to Orangetown, we get introduced to, and I can't wait to hear everybody like just like gush about this. We
Almost
get introduced
there.
to a character that just never stops.
Yes.
He's there.
So
all the time.
before we unleash the boys on this character, I have one quick question, and then we will talk about that said person.
Let's go.
So Mark kind of talked about it where, I haven't thought about this person in a while. You had just said that a lot of people who don't die in this series comes back. I think we've said this in a CrUno off scenes, just us type thing. But I'll throw this to Mark, Al, and you, Kaden, who are watching the anime. Al and Mark might be able to answer this. In the manga, these people who oftentimes are just like, we know they're alive, but like, what are they up to? Oda takes breaks between just doing fun, whimsical chapter covers, which is just like, Luffy and a monkey are eating bananas, like, just fun little illustrations, padding, if you will. But then he will tell us what is going on with certain characters in these like little chapter arc type things. Does anybody know, because we talked about filler, do they ever show any of that in the anime?
No.
So early on in the first East Blue Saga, they did the Captain Buggy's adventure, which was like a 4-piece cover story.
Yeah.
They did that in between Orangetown and they did that after Logetown before the actual filler. So technically it was, but it also wasn't. Because
Buggy is the first one, I feel like, but he does pay out those chapter covers in actual plot, because we'll get to it next episode, but just as an example, we meet 2 people in this arc who come back at the end of Alabasta. And they're both Marines. So we see their relationship blossom in these chapter covers. I have no idea if they just make time for a single episode to explain those chapter covers or not.
I guess it depends on how important it is to because like One Piece sometimes does the like, hey, remember this character? Like on a previously on, it's like, hey, remember this? As a thing of like, oh, well, I guess that character is going to show up in this episode, or something pertaining to that story beat is going to happen. But
they're off over here doing this ridiculous thing.
You keep saying it like that, and then my brain just keeps going. If you keep saying musician, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Give me the damn musician. I know it's got to happen. He keeps talking about it for a reason, and there's got to be a payoff, because I'm losing my mind.
There's just like, there's so much that happens in those chapter beats that I'm actually worried Kaden is missing out on, because in terms of like the anime, now I'm thinking that like, hey, remember this guy? He's back again. But when you're reading the manga, it's like we know what he's been up to while they've been traveling. Like we
And
see.
this is why, after you said that a while ago, because you're just like, oh, there's these little chapter things. It's like, huh. Yeah, they don't show that a lot. Like they did the buggy thing later in East Blue
Yeah.
after we get past Orangetown, but it never doesn't really happen. So when I was just like, oh, I got to probably refresh my memory because it was 200 something episodes ago. So I'll go back and read the manga a bit. I'm just like, oh, there's some different stuff in here. It's not
Oh.
super different, but it's enough like flavor text.
Yeah.
That
Flavor
kind of
text.
brings everything back to flavor
There.
text.
So the buggy one was the only time I'm looking at a big spreadsheet here. The buggy
Excellent.
one was the only time where they just sort of did it sequentially.
Like
Okay.
outright.
Yeah, well, actually, no. Sorry, I'm misreading this. They do it with the two characters that you mentioned, Molly. They
Okay.
they give them 2 episodes in between Whiskey Peak and Little Garden, and
2
then there's
episodes.
one.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it was 30 covers.
I mean, fair.
But
fair.
then like several years later, they do it again. With an event that I can't even bear to
Right.
hint at.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. But then more lately, I imagine the current cover story, without
Mhm.
saying what it is, the current cover story could be something that they turn into a couple of episodes.
Okay. I just find that
Ooh.
very interesting because it's just like already to begin with, when it's like I hope this person comes back, or I haven't thought about this person in a long time. Often he'll do these cover stories and then finish an arc or something, and then that person tends to come back. It's kind of like a little like appetizer before we see them again type of thing. So it's just like it would make me very sad if they didn't address that at all in the anime, and then it's just like, oh yeah, remember this guy Frieza? Oh yeah, he's back again. Like
No.
it's less of like a shock factor and more of like, like we know what's been going on. Like Luffy and them don't know what's going on. But now, yeah.
I guess to piggyback off of that, something we talked about in CrUno was that there's so many things about One Piece that feel like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Like as these things happen,
Yeah.
there's stuff the dungeon master is keeping track of while you're not interacting with those people. So it's like your characters are leveling up,
Mhm.
and then everybody else that you've met who isn't dead is also doing their own things to level up. And so you eventually intersect with their storyline or not, depending. It's like
Depending on how you choose, depending on which island you go to from island to island, you may or may not see these characters ever again, or maybe you will. Who knows? But characters that I would love to see again, Al, notably the Buggy Pirates. Like we've got to keep this moving just because we've only been talking about Romance Dawn.
I mean,
I'll
the
allow
kickoff. It's real big.
I'll allow it. You boy, go ahead. So
Orangetown is where we meet Buggy the Clown, Kabaji, and Moji and Richie, the main
Richie.
sort of group of like right now we only have Zoro and Luffy, so anybody that's more than a duo can be considered a legitimate threat.
Mhm.
And Buggy is all about treasure, Nami all about treasure, and they seem to get along well enough until we learn Nami's true colors. But Buggy is just this flashy, who are you like big mouth, big guy, and we learn that he was a crewmate with Shanks
Mhm.
on Roger's ship, and that blew the world even further open. Like, even though we're in the first couple of episodes, the first couple of chapters, and this world continues, boom, to be blown open. It's a big world, but a small ocean because everybody seems to have one little thing that connects themselves to each other. Al, why is Buggy the best character in One Piece?
He is constantly failing upwards. And I am here for it. I like just watching Buggy the Clown trying to balance his love of fame and his cowardice is just so good. And that big red nose on his face is in fact his real nose. So, like
I
that's
love that. I want to just stop for a second and appreciate that's like, if there's something quirky about the character, that's just who they are. That is literally just who they are, both physically and, emotionally and mentally. It's uniformity with both design
Mhm.
and character personality. And Buggy is the best personification of, yeah, he's kind of a clown. Just give him the red nose, and it's just his nose. It's just it. That's it.
Everybody is born with a brand, and they lean into the brand as they get older.
yeah, everyone in the One Piece universe is a marketing genius.
Can I talk about how much I love Buggy's laugh? Like both in the original and in the dub, he's just got this guffaw, this chortle of like, it's so good. There's something, and maybe this is just the voice acting thing, but when you know a character's laugh, when you know it,
About
that's
that.
when I think like most voice talent have that aha moment when they fully like lean into what that character's unique a laugh is. And Buggy right out of the gate has this just uniqueness in the laugh delivery. And that goes for both, the original and in the dub. And it's so good that it's endearing immediately.
I've said it before, I'll say it again, Kaden. I'm just so excited for you. I've got good news. I've got good news and great news about that.
You're gonna get fed. You're gonna get fed so well when it comes to that stuff.
I think you're far enough along. You probably have already caught on this. So I'll just say it for everybody. But every single person in One Piece has a different laugh, and you don't fully experience that in the manga. You read it, and it's like, okay, well, they're spelling ha 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 differently. But then when you watch the anime, you're like, oh, they specifically were like, no, you are voicing for this character. This is how their laugh is supposed to be read. We need you to do like 1,000,000 takes of this one unique laugh, and you're fed so much. You're fed so much good content with this. Like,
Listen, it really do be like that. It really do be like that sometimes.
In the best way.
You're just kind of like, I don't know, like, so Mike McFarland, I believe is the dub version of Buggy, and he's just got this kind of laugh to him,
Mhm.
and it's just so like, you can hear the clownness to it, but like, he's not playing it for like, oh, I'm laughing like this because I'm a clown. It's like, that's just the dude. That's just him. He's just laughing that way. And it's like, again, right out of the gate. And who was it? Gosh, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to like think. It was Shigeru Chiba, who was the original version of Buggy, and it's the same. It's like the same. And it's not like 1-to-1, but it is so amazing to hear it. And I did this. I went back and I like watched the first like 15, 20 episodes, and then I watched it again in English. And it's so like the soul of it is the same.
These are the same picture.
Right. It's the same picture. But nothing more than that right out of the gate than Buggy the pirate. Like Buggy the clown just hits this and says like, okay, we've hit a bar and we're 4 episodes in. This dude is gonna rocket into like, well, it's popular. Like everybody hates clowns, but Buggy though.
So, Caden, I don't think it would be speaking too out of turn to mention this. Buggy is Oda's favorite character.
Yeah.
It seems like it. Like it absolutely. So it's like if Buggy like ends up like showing up in the final chapter, like at the very end, like just going and be just like, I got to the treasure first.
They're like,
I mean, because then that's that circle of I was your first opponent. I am now your last opponent.
Right. And this is like because at this point, for me, Buggy's still out there. We've met him a couple more times. This dude ain't going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. So he's gonna keep coming back. He's gonna keep getting stronger. His bounty's gonna keep getting bigger. And I love that for him. He's a complete ass. He's
Good
a
for
complete
him.
fool. But it's like it's like you said, he's failing upward. Every time he meets Luffy, it's just like, I lost. But then he goes, beats the shit out of a bunch of other people, and then he comes back, it's like, I'm stronger now. And then Luffy's just like, yeah, I fought the Marines single-handedly while I was dying, and I'm cool now. And Buggy's like, well, crap! What am I gonna do? And it's just like he just loses again. And and that's what I like about Buggy, is that it's, you know what it is?
Hmm.
It's the Pokemon rival thing from Red and Blue, where you know, Luffy is red, and then Buggy comes in as blue, and it's just like, hey, what's up, loser? Smell you later. And it's like, and then he loses, and it's like, ah, well, I'll get you next time. And then he comes back and he's got stronger Pokemon, but by then you've outpaced him, won more badges, and grinded better, and you just like stomp on him, you kill his Eradicate, and it's just like, oh no. And that's the relationship between Luffy and Buggy is red and blue from Pokemon.
Yes.
That's a very, very interesting take.
Yeah. But I'd agree to it. Like that definitely sums up. It's just so funny though, because to me it's like we talked about this last time. Luffy is 17 years old.
16.
16 years old, and
No, he's 17, right? Same age as Usopp.
yeah,
Usopp
Usopp and
17.
Luffy are 17.
Oh,
Chopper's
yes, you're
15.
right. I'm sorry. My apologies.
No, you're good. It's just so funny though. It's like a 17-year-old, and then Buggy, who we know has been on this like legendary pirate ship. He's probably close to his 30s. Is like a rival to a
Dude, I bet he's
17.
older. Like, to add insult to injury, he's probably like,
I'd have to
40.
look it up, but he is not 40 because I know somebody.
He's 37.
37. Yeah, I was
Pretty
gonna say he's younger than somebody who I know is 40 in the series, and I know that like he was a little younger than them, but yeah, it's just I just love this like 37-year-old, 20 years older than Luffy, and he's like, "You're my rival, like you dang punk," and Luffy's just like, "Dude, I hate your vibes, like go away."
He's madman. I don't even think about you.
Luffy's got his fidget spinner and he's not even listening.
I mean, that's the Goku Vegeta thing where Vegeta's like, I've been traveling in space to fight, you know, Frieza and eventually take back my planet. And Goku's just like coconuts.
Yeah. I'm hungry.
Okay. It's like, all right.
You want to be friends?
Yeah. What's up?
Vegeta's like, no.
Never.
And then later on, it's like, maybe for like 5 minutes.
You want to fuse?
So we can beat that.
Put on this earring.
Yeah.
This best friend earring.
The closest Vegeta will ever admit to being friends with Goku is again, it's that rival mentality. It's like, no, we're not friends. We're not bros. We're rivals. It's like
Our kids go to the same school, but shut up.
Like real men, we're rivals. we show up once a week and drink wine and watch TV, but we're rivals.
So I
So you're
think
coming over for Thanksgiving.
I think what the Orangetown arc does
Mhm.
is it presents us to the idea that, all right, you may think our characters are weird. However, the sea is a huge place, and like it has that connecting thread of Buggy knowing Shanks, and so that relates him to Luffy in a certain way. But it's a way to show certain idiosyncrasies of, okay, there are themed crews, there are gimmicked crews. We should be expecting things like that moving forward. And because other than that, Orangetown, I only remember for Nami and Buggy's crew. Like in terms of Choo Choo the dog, amazing cover story years later. However, everything else is just like, oh, this is just the place where this happens. It's not necessarily.
It
To
also
me, anyway.
introduces our first major, like our first major adversary and another devil fruit user. Like
Yes,
this
that's
is
true.
this is
Thank
where
you.
we get, you know, the chop fruit, and this is one of the things I'm really happy about with One Piece is at time of recording, I am still 260 odd episodes in. We've had 3 elemental users. 3. The first one we get is this. And how he ends up eating it is the funniest thing, and I totally understand why he gets so like mad at Shanks for it.
Mhm.
But like his is the chop fruit, and it's just like, okay, well, what's your power? It's like, well, I'm kind of like, those little things that are held together by strings, and then when you press it, they all fall apart, and then you release it, and it comes back together. Yeah, that's my superpower. It's like, that's stupid. And then he uses it, and it's like, well, this is baller. I love this.
Well, so think about it from like a weapons perspective. When we think of pirates, we think of swords and guns.
Right.
Luffy can get shot and take it, and
And
Buggy
bullets
can get
bounce right off of
sliced. And they
Right,
bounce
and
right
Buggy-
off, and then Buggy can get sliced and take it and move right on. Those
Right.
are ridiculously overpowered for this world specifically.
Yes. And that's like the best part about, again, we're harping on Buggy, but that's because Buggy's like real cool. It's like, it's a
Y'all
real,
might be.
it's one of those things that's like, you take a look at Buggy's whole thing, and it's like, it's a great fight. Like, it's a fine fight. And how they beat Buggy is just like, they get him and then his pieces fall apart, and they're just like, tie him up. And it's just like, it's like, then you can't do anything about it. It's like, all right, your weakness is, well, once you fall apart, then we just make sure you can't back together the way you need to be. We'll put you back together, just not the way intended. And it ends up like leaving him, as this tiny little dude without all of his bits and parts. So he has to go and get him. And that's hilarious. It's like, where he's going. It's like, I got to go get my stuff.
They had my stuff.
I'm a head with legs and little tiny hands. I gotta get my things. It's like, your things are your arms and your legs and your torso, but like, go get your things, dude.
Yes, 100%. It's funny that we learned so quickly like what his weakness is, which is basically his limbs. He can't reattach if they're bound, and then his feet. His feet cannot fly. His feet must always be grounded, basically. But yeah, but in terms of like what you said, Mark, I feel like for me, Orange Town, from what you just said, it's like the intro to Buggy and the intro to Nami, basically. I feel like for me, yes, that is correct. But I feel like this is also something that at least Oda does. I'm not sure if the manga or the anime shows this at all, at least for the manga. When Buggy like slices his hat, those 3 slices on the top, Oda always draws damage. Like if you ever see like the top of the hat, it's like you can always see like where those slashes were. So I always think that's like, it's very interesting that long-lasting damage to the hat that Nami fixes is that we still see that in like current chapter color spreads, basically. So that I always think of is that I always forget who did it, and then Buggy from the beginning. And then we already had seen this with Zoro's intro. He is, locked up in like a marine front yard type situation. I feel like with Orange Town, it's the beginning of this repeated cycle with Zoro that we see for quite a while, at least like from what Caden has been watching. It's almost like every arc something happens with Zoro, but that his repeated injury and then repeated somebody kicks him in that injury and makes the injury worse, and him just being like, I'll walk it off or I'll sleep it off, or it's like, I feel like for so long he's in a perpetual state of like his wounds have not been healed. It's been 1 day since the last fight, and he's getting more wounds, and those wounds aren't healing, but he still is doing whatever. So it's like, we'll say, it's like for here, it's like he got stabbed by, I think, Buggy. When we first find out he's got the chop power, he gets stabbed in the side. He tries to sleep it off. An entire building comes down on him. He wakes up. They keep fighting. He gets kicked by the guy on the unicycle.
Kabaji.
Yeah,
he gets kicked by him, and then we leave Orange Island and we go to Syrup Island next.
We go to Syrup Island, and that's when this is the big stipulation here is Nami is a part of hanging out with these guys. Has not joined.
Yeah.
So they go through. It's like, and of course, it's Zoro. I appreciate that Zoro's introduction was just like episode and a half. And it's just like, okay, cool. Like Zoro's just like, okay, you freed me. All right. Why not? I'll be a pirate now, I guess.
Sounds good.
And that's it. Like until we get his backstory later on. But like we jump into Syrup. And it's, Nami's just like, we're acquaintances. I'll help you get where you need to be, but treasure. And this is where we meet, Syrup is where we meet Usopp. The man, the myth, the legend.
Captain Usopp. Captain.
Thank you.
Captain Usopp of the Usopp Pirates and his 8,000 men.
As a fellow captain, I gotta tip my captain's hat to a fellow captain.
Yeah, so Usopp is both Pinocchio and the boy who cried wolf.
And also like Aesop's fables.
And Aesop's fables, yes, all rolled into one. And I kind of I don't think we need to spend too much time on Syrup Village, but we sort of learned that we mentioned that Usopp is Yasopp's son, so there's a connection for Luffy to take advantage of, but he's also an honorable liar and one that wants to protect the village at all costs. We meet Kuro and Kaya. So I think Kaya is one of the people that we don't necessarily hear about a lot too much moving forward. Like we do, but
Usopp just talks about her like from where I am. Usopp's just like, oh, but Kaya this and Kaya that. It's just like we get it, dude.
Yeah,
So we got it. You like
so
her?
it'll
Okay.
get to a point. It'll get to a point where Usopp is like, okay, I'm gonna stop saying this out loud. Everybody knows that I'm going to tell this story to Kaya. Like, yes, we get it. We met her. She's great. Whatever. But with Kuro, like, okay, here's this terrifying pirate that has a history, and that tells us that there is a history of piracy. But I want to talk about Django for a second, because Django is this just absolute weirdo. But the reason I want to talk about him is not because of the character of Django, but because of his voice actor in Japanese, who is Kazuki Yao, who the casting director seemed to have fallen in love with. Because this is the first of many roles that we get to hear them in, to the point where they just keep getting increasing volume of a role to voice. And going back and hearing Django again was such a trip. Just because of where we are now, and hearing him pop up in this place and that place, and oh cool that like we hear him again as Mr. 2, and for where Caden is, we hear him as Frankie, and then we're gonna keep hearing him in the future when like he's gonna keep popping up, and you gotta have the thought of, well, they would do the thing where all of these characters meet, right? They gotta like they've got to all be in the same place and be like, hey, you sound weird, shut up, like whatever. But I just wanted to point out specifically Django, specifically Kazuki Yao, and how that unique voice will stay with us. Just like just keep yes, let's get more of that.
In terms of Syrup Island too, it's just like moving forward, the most important things we get out of this arc is that Usopp joins. The crew has a boat now called the Merry Go, or the Going Merry. And then, Django, we do see him again. We do see him again. Like, we can say that with confidence because Caden is at a certain point, and we'll talk about it next episode. But there's a love. We will meet him. He's one of two groups of characters that we see again very quickly, and the other is Buggy.
Like, does anybody have anything that they want to talk about with Syrup Island in particular? Because it's not that it's bad, it's quick, and the stuff that we take from it is pretty like, okay, we can talk about this more moving forward.
You say it's quick. It's 9 episodes, and it's a lot of just kind of like, I feel like this is where they kind of like fluffed it up a bit. It's like you could have probably cut some stuff here. Like, as far as pacing in the anime, it's probably paced differently in the manga. I have not gotten to that.
I feel
I
like
was like specifically focusing on rereading like those initial chapters, and I started like yesterday. But
it's
like,
kind of like a playground to figure out these character dynamics and how these character dynamics work together. It's like the first time we kind of have a handful of people and everybody interacts with the other person, and we're starting to see dynamics between people.
This is also like the first time we get somebody to actually join the crew as it is a crew, where it's like this is Zoro and Luffy, who are the crew at this point. It's like, and Usopp's just like, well, I hope to see you all later, and they're just like, what are you talking about? Get on the boat, nerd. Let's go,
nerd. Let's go, nerd.
Are you coming or what? He's just like, what do you mean? He's just like, well, you're our friends, so like, are you gonna join the crew, or are you just gonna get on the little dinghy boat and go off on your own business? And Usopp's just like, I did it! I'm finally going to be the captain of a pirate ship! And Luffy's just like, Yeah, all right. Sure.
Come on, you
Sure,
crazy
you
kid.
are. Get on the boat.
You're
But there's not a
crazy.
lot of like it's a lot of like small character moments, but there's nothing like big that happens here. And then we ship off immediately to another like a lot of stuff happens arc, which is Baratie.
Mm-hmm.
And Baratie is where we get Sanji, and we get the introduction of like what is this? One of the warlords that they keep talking about? Like one of
Oh,
the
Mihawk?
yeah. We get this dude. It's like, and this is huge. This is huge because Zoro's just like, this is the dude I've been looking for. And thinking about it in the sense of like when this was coming out, I was like, wow, that was fast. Like, I can't
Yeah.
believe we're really getting to the end of this story. And in the middle of that, Zoro's just like, he proves that he's worthy enough to be kept alive, but that he is so outlandishly weak in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to this dude. And Zoro's just like, I thought I was close. I suck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a
It's
great, like, in the middle of an arc where we're introducing a brand new crew member, we have a couple big character beats. Nami pieces out, who is not a crew member at this moment.
Mhm.
Nami just, you know, buggers off and hangs and takes off and takes the ship.
yeah.
And you know, we get all this stuff with Zoro, and then we get Sanji's quick little story too in the middle of. So in comparison to like Syrup, you know, Baratie is just like, all right, we're here, and this is what Luffy always wants. It's the meat, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the first time it's a repeating pattern. This is the first time the crew splits up. Which is it's not the first time. It's not going to be the last time rather, but it is the first time that Luffy's like, go on ahead. I gotta clean some stuff up here, and I'll meet you there. Progression, you know, a little bit of a progression of plot. Like, not everybody needs to stay behind. Luffy's just going to take care of it. It's also, Kane, just as you were saying, with Mihawk, it's the people have been telling, Buggy has been telling them, everyone has been telling them that you are in a fishbowl. The East Blue is safe and quiet. It is a fishbowl. When you get out to open sea, you guys don't even realize the crap you're going to get into. And it's like one of the first times. And it's like the person they fight, which is Don Krieg. It's like he has just come back from the Grand Line, and he is just like, they took everything. Like it is a bad time. I'm telling you, kids, it's going to be a bad time. If you guys can't defeat me, you're never going to make it out there. And until the point with Mihawk, we have just been told how dangerous the situation is going to be. But because they are so overpowered for the safety of the area they're in, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, old man, like, you know, like maybe for you because you're old, but like I'm stronger than you. And we meet Mihawk, and just immediately you're like, is Zoro going to die? Like, is this
completely outclassed? It's like hit at the hugeness of this world.
I know the manga panels bullet at Mihawk is just so OP, where he slices the bullet. It's just like you realize there's so much gravity to this person, and you're just like, oh, this is the danger that my mom has warned me about. Like, this is it.
One fear.
And
fear.
It's finally the first time we are getting, aside from Shanks, we are getting a taste of what this new world, this Grand Line that we keep getting warned about, is actually like. And also, just as a quick sidebar, Don Krieg is just like, you'll never make it out there. Mihawk is just chasing them because he's bored. He is just obliterating this crew. He's obliterating these people because he's just on this like little like tugboat. And he's just bored, and he's just like, "Why are you even in the East Blue? Like, what
he's
are you?"
He's in the level 1 PvP server, and he has max gear.
He's just like one-shotting.
He's literally on a series of logs roped together with a tiny little like sail and a chair glued to it. And that's his ship. And he's just sitting there with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. And like whatever the ship bumps into, it's just like, heaven help you if if my little dinghy like bumps into your ship, because I'm just gonna cut your entire ship in half without even moving. And it's just like, oh, we're in trouble. Like, this is where we're in trouble for real.
I just not for the first time have I asked. I have asked the higher being Oda and the pirate heavens as to like why is he? I know it's to progress the plot, but like in terms of like character, why are you here? Why are you in the calmest sea? Why? Like really, you're that bored? You could have actually like real adversaries in the Grand Line, but you're gonna go back to level 1. Like
there's only one Denny's, and it's in the East Blue. So we had to go back.
Dude, straight up. Like I would travel to a completely different ocean if I like, dude, this food is so baller. I gotta head back there.
It's why I was going to Baratie. It's just like, I gotta get a Grand Slamwich.
It's like on the way to the one Blockbuster. He's got to stop at the one Denny's.
The one Blockbuster, the one Denny's.
He's only a few hundred points away from that level 16. Now he can get a mount. So
a free plate.
So Al, Mark, take us through a little bit of Baratie.
Al, do you want to go first?
I mean, so Baratie is kind of tied to Zeff, who has probably the best facial hair we've seen so far.
Dude, I love him. 100% agree. Love Chef Zeff. Big fan.
And Sanji, he's like, I guess the first mate on this floating kitchen that creates great food. And does he? The problem I'm having is that I'm so far away from this part that I don't want to spoil any sort of anything. So, Mark, take it away.
So we find out how Sanji got there, and being stranded with Zeff eats his own leg in order to save Sanji's life, which takes him away from his life of piracy. So he builds up this restaurante, and from there,
before we get too far away from that, that's different in the anime. He loses his leg in the ocean. His leg gets cut off by the anchor. And he goes to save.
That's
save
right.
Sanji.
Yeah, they show that
stark difference.
Well, I would say in that East Blue recap that I watched, they talked about Zeff eating his own leg.
Interesting.
So
they went back.
Brought it back. They brought it back around and were like, no, okay, yeah, we'll do this. And so yeah, it's really sad. Like Sanji's about to kill him and steal the food in the bag, but it's just treasure. And so he's like, wait a minute, did you eat? Oh my God. So we find out that this was the beginning of their connection, and something about going through this experience sort of imparted into Sanji that I'm not going to let anybody go hungry. There's nobody. I don't care who you are. If you come to me hungry, I'm going to make sure that you leave with good food and a full belly. And we get this from Gin, who even for like what I would consider like a background sort of design, it's still because of what we see him go through and how Sanji presents him. That's still another character that like lives so vividly in my mind. Like even though like I had to look up his name again, it was just like, oh, whatever. Oh, I remember that guy. Yeah, good for him. But this leads to Don Krieg showing up, and like, oh boy, Don Krieg. What I remember watching back in like 4Kids days and being like, well, that guy's the big bad guy because he's covered in gold and he's got guns all over it and things like that.
Big house man.
Yeah, he's the large houseman. But like seeing in such a quick amount of time him being like that treasure and size doesn't make you a good pirate, but the friends you make along the way and the content of your character and Zeff being like, watch this fight and see how the boy fights versus how Don Krieg fights and tell me what you think from there. But like Sanji, and then learning that Sanji has a foot-based attack style because he can't sully his hands because he's a chef. Like
I love that.
It's so it's one of those character quirks that, oh well, yeah, of course that makes 100% sense, even though you use your hands for stabilization. But aside from that, it's
Well, yeah, but he's not punching anybody. It's like you break your finger bones. That's a whole other thing. But it's like,
yeah. But what about splinters, Caden?
you can splinters less of a problem than shattering your hand bone.
Yeah, I'm gonna punch this gold man.
Also, nobody wants to. It's like, look, if he breaks a foot, whatever, it can heal. It's fine. But if he breaks a hand, then he's gonna have to cook with his feet, and nobody wants that. Okay, nobody.
Let's just, Caden, you're not that far. All right, so
Oh man, I can't wait till we get to the feet cooking art.
Oh my god.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
but like I like
Island.
one of the things that I like about like in Baratie is Johnny and Yusaku, because like we talk about not knowing much about Zoro's past. We know that he was a bounty hunter, and this goes back to his time being a bounty hunter, and then we're like, oh, maybe Johnny and Yusaku are going to bolster this crew as we keep moving on, and they're just bros along for the ride. Bless them, bless their hearts. But like with seeing how I say easily, but how easily Don Krieg goes down, and immediately going to Mihawk, like somebody pressed pause and changed the difficulty level. How just it went from normal to hard mode in a heartbeat. But I do miss this restaurant, and I'm happy that we get to see, like, again, certain cover stories, certain flashbacks, like news coup, like updates, things like that. Al, I mean, you threw it over to me pretty quickly, but like, is there anything that still lives in your mind from this, or is it just too full of so much other stuff?
I mean, that one thing that this kind of establishes that nicknames are pretty common. Like if you're a pirate and you've done anything of renown, you'll get a nickname, and that comes up over and over as we move on. And it kind of like, if somebody's name's mentioned and they also have a nickname, you know, that's tied to some sort of character reveal that you'll find out later. And like the thing I was refraining from saying is that he's called Blackleg Sanji, and that reveals things as we develop. And I don't want to say too much more because that also ties into other things. But like when you're looking at Krieg, Don Krieg, his nickname is Foul Play Krieg. And like that's tied to how he's developed this like little fleet. And it's all these things that maybe people's nicknames change. Maybe people's nicknames are ironic. Maybe they're only literal. And it's like it's setting up all these rules that will be revealed as we keep going. And I don't know. The Dungeon Master part of my brain is so excited for you.
It's all hyper figurative. So I'm gonna jump in, and I wanna talk a little bit about Sanji, because Sanji was my initial favorite character. You'll notice you'll notice that I am not Sanji in all of our like promotion stuff. I'm Nami, which plays into like my character tropes myself. But Sanji was my favorite, and then Robin came in. And we'll get to Robin. We'll get to her. All right, because I have words for Miss Nico Robin. But I want to talk about Sanji, because Sanji is voiced by two really amazing voice actors. Hiroaki Hirata is the Japanese voice, who I just want to say, if you've listened to the original Sayuki, he's Gojo in Sayuki, which fantastic, did a lot of the early Digimon stuff in Japanese and everything like that. But to tie him and his English voice actor together, and I'll spoil who that English voice actor is in a second, but his Japanese voice is Godot in the Ace Attorney anime series, which is super cool, because Godot's one of those like very eccentric characters, a lot like Sanji, in that just like he'll play real chill for a bit and then just kind of explode with some emotions. To almost completely counteract that, Eric Vale is the English voice of Sanji, who, I mean, alongside playing everybody's favorite pseudo purple-haired Saiyan, Trunks, is the voice of Phoenix Wright himself in the Phoenix Wright anime.
Yes.
So tying both of them together, Hitowaki Hirata is Godot, and then Eric Vale is is Phoenix. And I kind of want to, like, this is me being silly with it. It's like, I'd love to splice the scenes together where Phoenix Wright in English is talking to Godot, who's speaking in Japanese, and it's just both Sanji.
Incredible.
But Sanji's such a fun character because he's the reluctant one. Is just like, no, I have my own journey. I'm going to go to the All Blue. I'm going to do that, but I have to finish my thing here. And then they just kind of like do this thing where it's just like, your cooking sucks. Get out. And they're just, he's just like, that's a lie. It's like, no, your cooking's terrible. Get out. And then Luffy's just like, well, I like your cooking. You could come with me. It's like, fine. And then they just leave. And as they're leaving, Sanji has this kind of like, oh man, they really did care about me. I hate these assholes.
Is that how they did it in the anime? 'Cause
That's how they did it in the anime. They all like, he made the soup that he made at the beginning that everybody was just like, there's a fly in my soup, that the whole like, shenanigan started with. And he made the soup again, and everybody's like, this soup sucks.
He's doing the backstroke, sir.
He's doing the front crawl.
In the manga, it's like they're trying to like get him out of there so that he has no, like, he's like, oh, why would I want to stay? You guys are being complete jerks. But it's like immediately they're like, who made the soup? And he's like, yo, it was me. Like, even though they're like sitting on the floor, like, all right, oh, these jerks didn't save us any chairs. There's no chairs in a restaurant.
Yep, they take everything.
Restaurant?
They take everything. They make Luffy and Sanji sit on the floor.
Yeah, and then it's just like, who made this soup? And he's like, oh, I did. And they're like, ew,
it's gross.
Oh, it's the worst soup I've ever had in my life. And then Luffy's like, I mean, I like
That's
it.
good.
Like it's you can't go wrong with chicken noodle. It's classic for a reason.
Soup
They're
good.
like, oh, it's so it's gross. And then he's just like, yeah, forget you guys. You guys are being weird right now. Leaves, and then immediately everyone's like, oh my god, that was so hard to do. And Luffy's still there, and he's like, why are you guys being weird? And they're like, we have to bully him. It's like, get out of here. It's like, go on, get, shoots the gun to get him to run.
It's the releasing of the animal in that emotional scene in every movie.
Yeah.
Like, for your own good.
We hate your soup. Get out of here. And then it's funny
Sanji
because
is Harry from Harry and the Hendersons.
yeah, basically. But it's like, at least in the manga, Sanji is just outside the door. So the second they're like, that was so hard. Oh my god, I would break. And like, no, you did a good job. You did a good job. Hey, can we get some more that soup? We love that chicken noodle. Like, can we get some more of that? He's right outside the door. So he's like, I literally can hear everything you guys are saying.
It's exactly like, it's like I hate them. He's leaving and he has this emotional thing. But that brings us to arguably what I would consider the real beginning of One Piece, which is Arlong Park. And probably I'd say probably the longest, like until we get to like the meat of Alabasta. Like even the villains we face after this, nobody kind of like hits those emotional notes like Arlong does.
Mark has said it. I don't remember if it was on a hot mic or not, but Mark has said it before that the best way to see if somebody is willing to sit down and watch One Piece to the entirety of it is showing them Arlong Park, because if this doesn't do it for you, this ain't it. You know what I mean? It's just like, and I feel like across the board, this usually is what does it for almost everybody. Is this? It's such a good arc. It's so good.
Yeah, when we get to Kokoyashi Village and we learn more about Nami's past, and we learn about Belmer and Nojiko and even Genzo. Like I made sure to write down everybody's names, but this is sort of the prototypical. There's usually one or two townspeople that we need to remember per island. Usually that will be an important linchpin in the story of that island, and their design has that unique quirk that you remember, or they have a unique way of speaking or whatever and what have you. But this whole island is Nami's family, and we have the big boss of the island, in this case being Arlong and his fishman pirates, Chu, Hatchan, Kurobi, and it all leads to backstory, why these people are fighting, big fight, celebration, next island. And
Yep.
if you get a taste of everybody's fighting style, you get a taste of everybody's sort of emotion and how they fit together as a team. Like, this is the first real test of them as a crew. And once you get locked in with all of that, like, I'm surprised this hasn't been made into a movie. Like, they've made Alabasta into a movie. They redid Drum Island as a movie, but it had like new crew members in it that weren't in it the original time, which totally makes no sense. But like, why they haven't made Arlong Park a movie yet is beyond me. The episode of East Blue that I got to watch had everything cut down to a place that made everything so hype, and the emotion just carried you. Like, the segment itself was only like 20-25 minutes. Like, everybody's was like an episode of a TV show.
Yeah.
But it was tightened up to such a degree where by the time Luffy brought that hammer down, man, I was just like, this is why I love this show. Let's go. And we get so many unique characters here. We get Nami's backstory, her connection with the Marines, but she also has a connection with the fishmen. But she also technically now has a connection as a pirate. Nami is our most versatile character that we meet, who has seen the most of the world and wants to see even more of the world. Now that we know what Nami is all about, did that affect? Well, I mean, clearly that would have affected everything that goes on, affects everybody's thoughts on Nami. But what was the thing that, again, I think this is an obvious question, but I do want to hear everybody's answer. What is the thing that sticks with you about Nami the most from this arc? And I'll start with Caden.
So this is what made me actually like kind of turn on Nami a little bit, because initially I was just like, okay, because she plays a lot of like the girl tropes in pretty much typical anime fashion up until this point. And then she kind of flips pretty hard, where she ends up being like the most hardened character by this point. Is she the strongest? Not by a long shot, but she's held her own longer by herself than anybody else in this crew, without having like this what Usopp constantly calls this monster quality that everybody else does have. Like, Luffy's a monster, and Zoro's a monster, and Sanji's a monster. But you have Usopp and Nami, and they're people. But Usopp's hanging out on this one island, but Nami's been like punking dudes this whole time, and you find out why she does a lot of this stuff. And it turned me from one of those people who's like, yeah, well, Nami's Nami, to Nami like being such an important part of like why I like One Piece. It shifted everything, because at this point I was just like, oh, I like Sanji, it's really goofy, everything's still kind of really silly. This is when things got real, like, in a lot of ways. It's like there were stakes before, but this is not only was this home, but this was home that is a different kind of home. This isn't where she was born or anything like that. This is where people accepted her and brought her, and it's like she had this great rapport with everybody. She was stealing from people, but it's just like, oh, they didn't have money, and so on and so forth. But you have such this emotional beat when everything goes wrong, and she ends up siding with Arlong, because she ends up realizing that the only way to like get out of this is to make a deal. And she's like 6.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I'm gonna get so many berries, I'm gonna buy the island back, I'm gonna save everyone. And everybody's just like, oh no, honey, no, you it's not gonna. And she's just like, I'm gonna do it.
But I'm gonna.
And she carries that even to the point of, that's why she leaves Baratie. Like, she leaves specifically because she's just like, I can finish this. I can finish this now. And she goes to do it. And the moment it happens it's like everything goes wrong for her. And everything she's done over the past like 10 years is all for naught. Everything's wasted. And this is where, she ends up joining the crew for real. And it's such an emotional difference in comparison to like Usopp joining or Sanji joining or Zoro joining or even Luffy going on his journey in the first place. Nami joins because not necessarily because like, oh, she's going to do her dream of charting all of the oceans. Because she could have done that on her own. She really just could have. She joins because of what the crew ends up meaning to her through this arc, which is she lost her family and she turned her back on her family. And she had to make like a literal almost deal with the devil here to, keep them safe. And then she stumbles upon these group of weirdos that decide to be her new family. And she goes with them not out of, responsibility for like, paying off a debt or chasing her dreams, but because she feels comfortable with these people. And it was such a different moment and it was so heartwarming. And, Arlong is just this absolute master of the deal. And he's such an upper echelon of power that we jump from Krieg, who's just kind of like a down and out. He's already like beaten to shit by the time we see him. He would have been formidable had he been, but he really wasn't. But Arlong's at the top of his game. So it's a whole other thing. And that's why I appreciate that they took time with this whole arc and bringing out Nami's like character and that hat scene.
Yeah. I'll say this before we throw it to Al for his, because I'm gonna need a little bit of time because I'm just gonna go off. This is like one of my favorite parts of One Piece, but it is
I'll keep mine very short.
No, that's good. It's up until this moment, up until this arc rather, Nami has kind of been doing her own thing, still doing what she's always been doing, stealing from pirates for her own gain, and everything. But she's kind of had fallen into this small little niche where she could kind of be herself, and like she was having a good time. And then while they were at Baratie, she saw Arlong's wanted poster and is kind of like thrown back into reality. Like she's in this moment where she realizes now, like, I can't really keep putting this off, like it was, I got to go back at some point. And so she finds this opportunity to just, do what she's always done, steal a ship and then go and do this thing. And I'll just say that as like the preface it, and I'll toss it to Al.
So this is basically the completion of the gang finds a brain cell quest. So it's just everybody trying to think of strategy at all. Like there's only one person so far that they have met that can strategize successfully, that isn't just gonna like lie their way out of something, and that's Nami. And like with this, the crew feel like with her addition, the crew becomes well-rounded, I think. Like, and it's kind of hinted that she's going to be attached to the crew for a while. Like you start to pick up on these patterns that happen, but like here, like this makes it official, and it feels so earned and so emotional, and it's great. It's a great arc, and that's all I have to say about that.
But it also introduces us to one of the non-humanoid, I guess humanoid, but the non-human species in the Fishmen, and how it's more than like,
for sure.
Okay, this isn't just the sea where there's mermaids or whatever whatever may have you, but here are like full-on hybrid humanoid animals, in the sense of like what is Arlong is a type of shark. I don't think he's not a great white, because that would be way too big.
Arlong is a swordfish, isn't he? Because he's got the nose.
But I thought he was
he's a saw shark.
Yes, that would make sense because of the sawing.
Combine the two.
Yeah,
the shark and the swordfish.
But we have Kurobi, who is a ray fish. We have Chu, who's a smelt whiting fish.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Oh.
A Siligonidae? I don't. And
The
Hatchan,
best one, Hatchan.
Hatchan.
who uses Roktoryu, that's twice as many swords. That's
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying, but a formidable crew nonetheless. And I think the first real get hype fight in One Piece history, because like Kuro and Django, I felt like more emotionally invested, even though I know we didn't talk about Syrup that much, but like I felt more emotionally invested because of Kaya, because of the village, and because of Usopp. Whereas this was both emotion and strength. Like this was it. Oh my god. And this was, I think, the first, more so than Dawn Creek, because whatever, like disrespectful hand motion. But with Arlong, this was scary, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Stakes
he
were high.
100% stakes were high. And even this did so much to also further like the idea that there are two types of Marines. In Belmer, we have like this is a type of Marine that is like a good human and actually does care about the safety of the world. And then we have that son of a bitch Nezumi that is just
Yeah.
like, whatever, as long as I can get my piece of the pie, I'll do whatever. So this introduces the idea that there are, and I know we are AMAB here. We are all Marines are bad, all Marines are bastards, however you want to put it. But this introduces the idea that there may be a positive, at least some sort of a shred of like good people Marines left. And I think
Yeah.
that is also equally as important to remember.
We get a taste of that with Coby. Coby is so determined that like
Kobe's
even
just a good dude.
yeah, but I mean like it's more like even if the system is corrupt to its bare bones, you know, Kobe's coming in with new blood, new energy. He's trying to put, you know, trying to shine up the old Marine name after they've completely filthy dirtied it. But it's now we're seeing somebody who is just like was in a situation where they did their job, they did their duty. They could have just lied down and died and decided this next chapter of my life already, you know, probably had been left for dead by the corps that she had joined. We're talking about Belmer, who is Nami and Nami's found sister Nojiko. Her sister. This is kind of like her found family. She finds these two little girls in a destroyed town that she had just fought a battle in, and adopts them basically, and decides like her time as a Marine is now over. Her time as a mom is beginning. Basically, the intro with Belmer.
Just an interesting like side note. Comparing, this is one of those times where the anime dub and original kind of divert in how they say something. In the original, it's Belmer. For the dub, it's Bellamere, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I like better. Just throwing that out there. They both sound really good.
I know it both. It's funny. It's like depending on the how I see it written. If it's Belle, it's Bellamere, and if it's like if they just like kick the e out, I just say Bellamere. But
Yeah.
I both are correct to me. You know what I mean? It's just like
But it's
they
like
both-
French for beautiful sea or something, right? Is that
Yeah.
right?
So I think yeah.
So we get up to this, and Nami decides to join in at the end of the Arlong arc. And at this point, because of not just the fact that they beat Arlong, but because the Marines were there, we get this final. This is why I say this is where One Piece begins, because after it's like there's been murmurs. It's like there's this weird rubber dude going around. He beat Buggy, he beat Krieg, and then they witness the end of Arlong. They witness the end of this whole thing, and they're just like, we got to report this guy. So they report him, and this is where Luffy's bounty comes in. So now Luffy has a bounty on his head. They are now known. They aren't just some old pirates no more. They are bounty pirates. And then immediately after that, it's just like the anime goes, okay, Buggy now. They just show the episodes of Buggy going to the little island that they went to like way before, and Buggy gets his bits back together. Like TLDR, Buggy becomes Buggy again.
He found his
Yay.
stuff.
He found his shenanigans. He got it all.
One Piece truly begins in the moment after we have witnessed Nami's backstory. We see for years, if not a decade, she has been getting this amount of money to pay off Arlong, to get her island back, to free her town, the whole island, her family, to free them from this terrible situation that she expects Arlong to uphold. And in these episodes, these chapters where Oda is making us question Nami's entire character. Is she a bro? Is she not a bro? You know, she stabs Usopp, but then we find out she stabbed herself. We're falling down these stairs of Nami is gonna hit rock bottom, and when she hits rock bottom, it's this. Again, goosebumps. It's this emotional moment where this woman is at the bottom, and the last thing she wants to do is ask for help, and she asks Luffy for help. And the moment he puts the hat on her head, as in like, you know, hold my flower. It's like, go get him, baby. Just like passing it off. I'm gonna do this thing for you. At this moment, and I said it before on a separate recording, and I think that was the 4Kids dub. But when she asks Luffy for help, it's like, Luffy, help me, and he says, "Of course I will." Or I think it's actually like help, and it's okay. Like,
yeah, or something like that.
That is the moment when One Piece starts. The second he starts walking, he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna like, yeah, like, let's go." That moment, and then it's like the music changes, and it's like dun 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 dun, and it's like all the guys were just there overhearing, like watching Nami stab her like tattoo, crying, throwing dirt at Luffy. They were all just there off screen. We didn't see them, and it's just like, let's go, boys. Like, we got stuff we gotta do, you know, like, we're gonna get this done. That is the moment to me where One Piece truly starts. If you do not like this moment, if this moment is not a payout to you, this show ain't for you. Okay.
It's true. It's true. It felt very validating, and almost to, I don't want to say detriment, but the next, it's not filler, important, but it feels like okay, that was a real emotional high. Let's do some housekeeping.
Let's see Buggy again. Let's bring Buggy back. We are in this new area. We're in this new town, Logtown, which is both a prologue and an epilogue to the story of Gold Roger and Goldie Roger, as she keeps pointing out. But we get a bit of a recap of what's happened and an acceleration forward into the Grand Line. We meet one of the few One Piece figures that I ever had of Smoker, because as we talked about with Bellemere or however you want to pronounce her name, we see that Smoker may be this big bad guy, but he has this interaction with this little girl that's like oddly adorable. Like, hey, sorry, my pants ate your ice cream. Go get yourself a 5 scoop. Like,
Yeah.
like, okay,
one heavy gold coin.
He's a bad guy, but he's not bad guy, you know?
Yeah. Like, with that coupled with Tashigi, we meet Tashigi, who, for some reason that we would very much like to find out, looks exactly like Kuina.
Mm-hmm.
And even goes with Zoro on this sword buying adventure, because his swords got all sorts of messed up in the previous battle. And so we learn then about the sword hierarchy, that there are these 3 different qualities of swords, and the one that Zoro got from Kuina was this super high level sword that's worth millions of berries, and then he gets 2 more. So already from his last encounter with Mihawk, he's already leveling up. But this whole little almost fillery type of important arc has so much in it. What was everybody's favorite part? Molly, what is something that you take from Logtown?
Well, it's funny. We didn't like fully kind of like go into it with Sanji, but it's this like, in terms of like who's chugging their respect women juice. It's like Sanji chugs the like both the I respect women juice, but also the simp juice. Like it's a blend of two similar but very different types of juices. Whereas Zoro, we see on this island that with Zoro, it's, yeah, I respect all women. Like, anyone who crosses my blade, I don't care if you're a kid, I don't care if you're a woman, I don't care if you're a dude. Like, you're gonna get, if you're gonna step to this, you're gonna get it full blast. Like, I respect you to that degree. And we see on this island where he meets this woman, Tashigi, where he has no idea. It's the face of the best friend, the girl who died, his rival, his romantic interest. Who can say? But she's got the face of this person that's very dear to Zoro, and we find out in this moment that he respects all women. But like the one woman he is like hesitant to fight is Tashigi now. It's just like he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do with this. So instead of dealing with it, he just is like, I gotta get out of here. Like, don't follow me. Like, I'm leaving.
Thanks for the swords, but please leave me alone.
Yeah, it's an interesting character moment with Zoro because it's kind of this like headlong, like, yeah, whatever, let's go, Luffy. Like, yeah, he's very chill. He's kind of like goes with the flow, but he has his own thing. He has this thing that he is gonna do, and he tells Luffy straight out, like, if I ever have to deviate from this thing I have to do, I'll kill you. Like, do you understand? Like, it's always gonna be, my thing is always gonna take precedence. Your thing comes second. And then it's just this moment where it's just like, like, don't talk to me. Like, I do not know what to do with this.
He forgot to drink the emotional intelligence juice.
Yeah, and I feel like out of this whole real pit stop, aside from like the gravity of the town, the history of the town, basically, I think this was a very interesting moment for Zoro, and especially now we're starting to get into legendary swords. They make a point of like identifying 3 very strong swords in this episode, this chapter, that they really didn't ever address until now.
It's the new collectathon. It's Tashigi and Zoro's new collectathon. I like
set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And there's also we get a fun character moment because Sanji wasn't a member of the crew, of him seeing the smoke show that is Alvida and being like, "Whoa, main course!" Like, just silly stuff. It's like, oh, he don't know.
I'll add real quick. You just reminded me of a thing. I don't know if they show it in the anime, but there is a moment I specifically screen capped when I was reading the manga to send to you guys. I don't know if Caden saw this, but it's like the part where Sanji's at the market and he sees Usopp. He sees Usopp. He's like, "Oh, what's Usopp doing at the market?" And then it's just like, "Whoa, these eggs are so cheap." He's like, "What are you, a housewife?" Like, it's this like really funny moment where it's like, what is Usopp doing here? Like, is this gonna be, it's like, what's going on? It's like, whoa, oh, eggs! Like, I need smelly eggs for part of my shtick.
I just want to like quick shout out to the little bit of, because we kind of went over all the beats for Zoro, and I don't want to like keep harping on that as much as everything. Though Tashigi, like, the moment Tashigi was on screen, I'm just like, oh, I love her. I love her immediately. And Smoker's just a fun character. And we see more of them later, and I can gush more and more about them when they become more and more relevant, because this was kind of like the taste.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, Alvida and Buggy come back, and they kind of take up some time as well. But just some toss away like kind of characters. Daddy the Father is the funniest. It's the funniest name. And I'm just like, yes.
Double dad.
Bounty Hunter Dad the Father. And I'm just like, all right, okay. But like, again, like One Piece being is like Sanji being the pervert, but being just classy about it, having that battle with Five Alarm Carmen. And I'm just like, I love this. I love this like mutual. It's like as soon as it comes down to cooking, Sanji's all about the business. There is no muss, no fuss, no coconuts. He doesn't mess around with anything. It's like, I'm gonna win this because I want this, because cooking is my life above all else. And that's where his respect is earned. And this comes back later in other arcs, where anytime somebody else is a chef, Sanji's just like, all right, we're gonna have a little
1v1 me, bro.
This is Kaden,
let's go.
you just cracked open my childhood and reminded me of this, because this is not in the manga. This is just something they decided to do in the episode. Like, he is just shopping in the manga. Him and Usopp are just shopping, and the main focal point is Zoro and Luffy in this chapter. And then as you were describing that, I like that's so Raven back in time and remembered this episode of like Sanji doing his whole thing about like proving to be like a really good chef.
Yeah, he has this whole battle about like, I want this fish. I've dreamed about cooking this fish, and then he 1v1s like Five Alarm Carmen, and they have this like respect moment. It's like, I love that. I love that whole thing, and it kind of like everything kind of like ends in this whole moment of just like, okay, we've met Smoker. You know, we have this whole fight. You know, we have this whole altercation between Zoro, Tashigi, Smoker, and Buggy, the Buggy Pirates, all the Straw Hat Pirates, everybody just kind of like, they're getting out of this of this town. They're just trying to get away from this. And that's like the opening up to like, okay, we are going into this next major, part of this. And I was expecting this to be like a lot longer. I was expecting, oh, the Grand Line's going to be this huge thing. We're going to finally get there. It's like, no, it's like 60 episodes. It's like, we're there. Welcome to the Grand Line. We did not stay in East Blue as long as I thought we were going to, and it was very surprising to me. And I know that there's another arc in there, but it's the Worship Island arc, and like TLDR, nothing happened.
It's like it's the most important part basically of Lush Town is this beginning. It's like the first statement we're gonna start seeing, which is Luffy just so often is just like, I have a goal in mind, but I'm willing to put it to fate. And it's this moment where like we see where he straight up is just like, oh, okay, I guess this is it, like accepts his death. He doesn't think he's gonna get out of it. This is his moment where he's like, yeah, this is it. Okay, well, rip, YOLO. It's like, it's this moment where he's just kind of like, cool. And then people are just like an entire square of people is just absolutely flabbergasted that he survives this, not only electrical shock, but like dude was about to get beheaded and be okay with it. Like, and by Buggy no less. Like,
yep.
And it starts to we start asking the question, how much of this is up to fate? How much of this is up to destiny with Luffy? Like, it's just like, how much of this is skill based and how much of this is just you're rolling 20s and you've got lucky die? Like constantly you're rolling. How many times is he rolling at advantage, basically?
It's a lot of the like this definitely ties into the shonen trope of like sometimes your willpower gives you some bonuses.
Yeah.
Depending on how mad you are about something.
Yep.
You're literally just powering.
I think some people call it plot armor.
Plot armor, the power of friendship. There's lots of different things for it. I think the only like big takeaway from like Worship Island stuff is dragons are real. That's the biggest thing I can pull away from it.
I wanted to ask, we met this mysterious figure that saves Luffy from Smoker, that Smoker identified as Dragon. And they said, the world is waiting for our answer. Who the hell is Dragon? With this, Caden, I would like to transition into wild theorist territory.
All right.
With answering that question,
okay.
Is there any other wild theories you have?
Is there any other wild theories? I mean, you dropped me into a thing that I was like, I had this whole thing because I'm all in Water 7 mode, and I'm just like, well, Frankie's gonna join. They've been hinting at it the whole time. So Frankie's gonna be the shipwright, and he's gonna be next part of the whole thing. It's absolutely, the next part. But I want the musician. I want the musician next. I want it. I want it bad. I want it to happen. But and that's the thing that maybe I'll try and like loop it all back around or something like that. But maybe I don't know. Just this whole sense of the world is still bigger than I think it is in One Piece. There's all sorts of creatures and stuff. We don't have a fish man on the team. So maybe the musician's going to be a fishman. Maybe the musician's going to be something else because, I mean, we got Chopper, and Chopper is the kawaii shonen animal companion, character that I'm certain will not get a bounty because it's like,
the
what is
pet.
that? A plushie? We're not giving a bounty to a plushie, or something along those lines. Some stupid something that Chopper will be just like, well, this is bananas. That's not fair.
Chopper's like, I have a doctorate. I am a doctor, and
I am a
everybody's like,
furry doctor. I make all the money.
they're like, whoa, cool mascot, Straw Hat Luffy. I don't really get it because you're Straw Hat Luffy, but we'll respect your mascot game.
So, you say that. You say so Mark, you bring up this thing because I hadn't even thought about that in forever because it doesn't exist.
Oh.
It's just like it's not even in the periph. So let's just let my brain like go for a couple minutes and we'll see where we end up. If the Marines are after a particular person named Dragon, because Dragon is this thing person, whatever, that saved Luffy from, everything, there is got to be some either tied to it's got to be like maybe tied to the pirates. I mean, if the Marines are after this particular individual, whomsoever they may be, they got to be doing some some serious shenanigans. And considering the fact that Smoker, who is widely regarded as one of the top people at the time, especially for the Marines and in this area, he's like trusted with a lot of information that a lot of people aren't trusted with. And that ends up coming back to bite the military later. If this is the case, and they're just like, uh-oh, who knows? So, I don't know. Who would the government hate? Well, I'll just draw on. I'll draw on characters that I may have played. Who does the government hate? I don't know. People who actively fight the government at every turn. Something the government would necessarily call designate as criminals, or it's like, anti-government. It's like something against
Like
the fascist police state. See, you say pirate, but I don't know. If it was supposed to be a pirate, they would have said pirate. And I feel like that's a distinction there, is that this person may be not necessarily a pirate in the literal sense, but more a pirate in a figurative sense, in that we don't necessarily know what to designate this person, but technically, since they're going against the government and they're stealing some stuff, we can call them a pirate, but maybe they're not a pirate at all. Maybe there's something like in an upper echelon of something. They're like dismantle the establishment's floorboards, like a revolutionary, but like an asshole, because everybody in One Piece is just an asshole, except for like Luffy. And everybody has those moments of just like, oh no. This is like, I'm totally actually a jerk for a bit. Like I'm expecting Ace to just kind of like flip at one point and be just like, I'm not as nice as you think I am, but I'm actually super nice realistically, but I had my moments and I'm better now, and so on and so forth.
Being an a-hole, I feel like, is in the eye of the ball. So I feel like depending on who you ask, he is 100% an a-hole. Like, I feel like if you ask,
but he makes friends with his enemies.
But if you asked Buggy, if he was an a-hole or not,
dude, Buggy doesn't count. Buggy's Gary Oak. Okay, of course. Luffy's ass. But I don't know if
Gary Oak, but 37.
So here's my Hail Mary pass. I've talked about this before. I do think that Luffy has ties to the Marines. It has to be. Whether that be, his mom, which I don't think so, because One Piece seems to have this necessary aversion to really like not having strong female characters, but not also having them. It's kind of weird that they do and they don't. So I'm wanting to say like either like paternal or maternal, like grandfather, or like an uncle, or I don't know. I don't want to necessarily throw like a dad card in there, but I guess like it could just be just like, oh, it's like, oh, it's the surprise twist. It's like, Luke, I am your father, or something along those lines, which, I mean, that's tropey as hell. But again, we're an anime trope village, so we might as well just like double down on this.
Oh man.
So if I'm like galaxy braining this in the sense of just like everything, I want to say one side or one person in Luffy's family is just this hella anti-government person, and because of the reasons, and this might flip, because of the reasons, maybe it's like a Romeo and Juliet situation where it's like, well, I work for the government. It's like, well, I hate the government. But then we made Luffy, and Luffy's just like, I like everybody, which is kind of not what they were going for. So it's either like maybe like Luffy's maternal grandfather, who's this person who's just like, I'm looking out for my grandson because government sucks. And
Cute.
then like a paternal grandfather is, this, like maybe this like, older military general, something. Or we could go the opposite way, and it's, a
It's a
parent
baby.
child situation where it's, it's like the parent is working for the government because they're going against the child's going against the parent, and conforming to society because the parent was a terrible parent and they were a pirate. Or you flip it, and the parent was the grandparent was a terrible parent, and the parent was a terrible parent, and the child is just like, okay, you're a terrible parent because you work for the government, so I'm going to be a pirate now. But it literally could be anything. It could just be like some dude or Gold Rogers is like, surprise, I've never dated.
It's
But-
funny how much you just echoed, like, just describing, the situation. I already thought of characters we've already met, like with Axe Hand Morgan. I mean, that's kind of in itself. We're seeing a Marine, kind of poison his child's whole personality by what you just said.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, and if we're doing this whole thing of just like this whole like George Lucas, Star Wars, everything rhymes nonsense that happens with pretty much every media. I feel like it has to. Everything kind of ties back together. Everybody's stories come from a very similar place. You have Usopp, who, lost his parents in one way, shape, or form. Yasopp went away and his mother died. And then you have Nami, who lost, her actual parents, and then lost her actual mother figure. And then you have Zoro, who lost, it's like the only family he felt close to, which was, this girl who was his rival and his inspiration. And then you have Luffy, who, it's just like everybody around him, it's like, you have Shanks, who's just gone. She's doing Shanks things. He's doing whatever, but he's not there anymore. And, he's trying to prove himself. So, and it's like, and again, this is where I'm just like, who the heck is Sanji's parents? And it's like, we know who Chopper's parents are. They're, deer who hate deer who have blue noses, which is like, what the hell even is that about? Which I still don't know anything about Robin to an nth degree. I've gotten some nuggets, I've gotten some stuff, but it's just like, again, this is like, it's all about just like parents being terrible. So I want to lean back into that a little bit because it's an anime trope. Is you to be an anime protagonist, and this is why people call me an anime protagonist. You have to have terrible parents.
Oh boy.
So to have that, and that's like the biggest anime trope in the world, is just like you have this hero that is better in spite of. And that's what I want for Luffy because of how much shit he goes through. I want this to be based on the fact that it's like he knows things are bad. Like there's in the back of his mind, he knows there's something else that's just not great. And it might be everything, and it might only be a couple people. But the whole point he wants to be, and this is me like jumping to the end of the series, why does Luffy want to be the king of the pirates? To fix everything. The whole goal is to make everything better. And it's this whole like galaxy brain situation where it's just like, I want specific people to be on my team and on my ship because they believe in the same thing that I do, which is why he's trying to be like Shanks, because Shanks is like that. But Shanks is also still like this person. It's like Shanks has some moments that, it's like, well, I don't know, like Luffy doesn't understand. It's like, why do you do this? And he's still learning. So he's trying to get to Shanks's level, but I feel like eventually we're going to get to a point where he's going to be like, Shanks is great, but I can be better. And I want that for Luffy, because if Luffy's going to find One Piece, which is, the friendship we made along the way, it's this, concept of world betterment that he's been going for, which is why everybody's so similar yet different. Everybody brings a piece of the world with them from where they grew up, but they also have things that are like, yeah, it all rhymes. Jar Jar's the key to everything. So just waiting for Usopp to be like.
I mean, you say that.
Well, we know at some point he's gonna have to meet Shanks because he's only borrowing the straw hat.
He's only borrowing the straw hat, and that's where something that bothers me. That it's not his hat. Because it makes me think that this hat is more than just a hat, and it's like some relic of some kind. Because we keep getting these things. It's like, well, here's this paperwork of this ancient weapon, and it's like, I'm waiting for the hat to just be like, it's the key to turn on all the weapons. You put the hat on the robot turns on the thing, and a giant cannon pops out, and the world's destroyed.
You put the hat in the wall, and then turn it clockwise, and it's this whole time.
And
we have to trade the hat with the golden idol. Just the right speed.
The whole reason Robin joined us is like, oh, it's like you said your middle initial is D, and that's really interesting. But really, she's like eyeballing the hat, like that's important.
Heavy breathing.
I think at certain points too, she specifically tosses him the hat twice.
She does. Like, she wants him to just keep the hat. She wants him to keep the hat. The hat's important. The D's important. There's dragons and fishmen, but none of them are on the boat. There's none of it.
So I know you were about to get there, and I don't want to spoil it, but since you're right there, Robin comes from an island of hat makers. And that's her backstory,
Mm-hmm.
She's the Mad Hatter. That's why the government's after her.
Yeehaw!
Dangerous tea parties.
I think with that we should probably wrap up because we're getting dangerously close to meeting some new members of the crew. But before we go. We want to make sure that you follow everybody on their respective social medias. So, Caden, if you could please let the folks know how to follow you.
You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Tumblr. And it's all the same thing. It's just my full name. No space, KDINJENZEN. That's Caden Jensen. Or you can follow me on the Rooster Teeth website. And my username is Caden, KDIN.
Al, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Al McClelland Jr. ALMCCLELLANDJR. And yeah, if you look up my name, you'll probably find me.
And you can find me at Mark B. Donica on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, things of that nature. Captain, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at TheFlood, TEHFLOOD. And then if you really want some memes, you just need to take a break from the internet. You can find me on Tumblr for either Molly Flood or Molly K Flood, depending on what you're looking for.
Molly's got the good memes.
got
that gatekeep gaslight girl, boss. Let's go.
Come rest your head. Come learn some new memes. Come learn what Gen Z's up to on my Tumblr.
Only the dankest of memes? Do they say that still? Dank? No?
Yeah, and the episode, please.
Okay.
And we just learned Al's a cop. Going along with how most arcs and sagas have ended now that you've listened to the episode, you've joined the crew. With that comes the responsibility of telling your friends, leaving a comment, and following us on Twitter at Yayo Talk Show and letting Caden watch the show in peace. So, come aboard and we'll see you next time on the Yayo Talk Show.
Talking about One Piece.